Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. This time, Mime and Marionette, cold-blooded psycho killers. Another pair of new villains on the DC block. Doomsday Clock number 1 by Gary Frank and Jeff Johns holds a few delights for the intrigued reader. The most prominent one of these is the reappearance of Rorschach. However, Doomsday Clock also brings two entirely new characters to the Watchmen universe. Except they aren't all that new. The characters in Watchmen were completely the brainchild of Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore, although they were designed to pay homage to certain superhero stereotypes, as well as heroes from Charlton Comics, a company that the legendary DC had recently bought. Both Marionette and Mime, who were designed by Frank and Johns for Doomsday Clock, descended from the same lineage. In Doomsday Clock number 3, Mime and Marionette appear to have modified a fundamental component of the Watchmen universe. The two villains were revealed in Doomsday Clock Part 1 as being a part of the same universe as the premise of Watchmen, and were approached by Adrian Veidt, also known as the heroic Ozymandias, to aid him with a scheme to save their society from nuclear devastation by finding the missing Dr. Manhattan. Mime and Marionette both were supposedly introduced as analogues of the famous Charlton Comics antagonists Punch and Julie. Punch and Julie once were Coney Island puppeteers as well as petty criminals who happened to find a crate full of extraterrestrial technology and decided to utilize it in their criminal activities. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Exploring the twisted origin of Mime and Marionette. Marcos Mays and Erica Manson, alias Mime and Marionette, were prominent adversaries in the DC Comics tale Doomsday Clock, which is a sequel to Watchmen. They are a husband and wife supervillain combo that join forces with Rorschach II, as well as Ozymandias, to find Dr. Manhattan and also their missing son, who mysteriously disappeared. Erica and Marcos were born to two shop owners who lived next to each other, and Erica's father owned a store that sold marionette dolls. The two developed a deep bond, which was heightened when Marcos defended Erica from a gang of bullies. Erica's father was eventually forced by corrupt cops to kill himself as they were trying to extort money from him, and Marcos's parents both died as a result of the cops' actions. Erica, enraged, attacked the cops with Marcos's assistance. They never left one another's side since then, assuming the identities of Mime and Marionette to commit crimes when they both became adults, with Marcos later also getting access to an armory of invisible weapon gadgets. At some time during their nefarious careers, the two villains, or at least Marionette, confronted the vigilante named Rorschach, who swore to hurl her into an elevator chute if he encountered her ever again. During their most recent crime, the two locked up a bank that was a little distance from Empire State Plaza while putting on a performance for cameras. Mime then watched a teller who was named Julia call the cops, and Marionette used a photo of her kid on the desk to compel her into exposing the guy who could enter the bank vault, Mr. Mangold. Mangold tries to deceive Julia by claiming that the bank vault is on a time lock, but Marionette intimidates Julia once more and calls his bluff. In retaliation, Mangold begins verbally harassing Julia and her kid, and Marionette, infuriated, uses one of her wires to cut his finger off. Mangold then disclosed that the vault, ironically, has a hand scanner, prompting Marionette to question whether anyone saw where the finger went. Dr. Manhattan came just in time to thwart the heist, his quick appearance taking Marionette by surprise. Mime leveled his rifle at Manhattan, who prepared to murder him just for Marionette to come forward and declare that Manhattan must also kill her. Manhattan then saw a separate heartbeat coming from inside Marionette's chest, suggesting that she was possibly pregnant, and retreated as the cops approached them both. It was eventually revealed that at least 37 individuals were slaughtered because of Mime and Marionette's murderous spree. Marionette, whose real name was Erica, was then imprisoned for robbery and mass killings until Rorschach II set her free. She hesitated to go, first because she was afraid of Rorschach, and later because she couldn't bear the thought of leaving her husband. Rorschach II grudgingly released Mime before transporting the pair to New York City in order to meet up with Ozymandias, who enlisted them to assist him in his search for Dr. Manhattan. Mays and Mason reapply their outfits while Ozymandias tells Rorschach that he thinks Marionette may be utilized to give a reminder to Dr. Manhattan of who he once was and persuade him to come home. They board the Owl ship together with Ozymandias and Rorschach and leave just before New York City is obliterated by a nuclear detonation. Mime and Marionette are cuffed after an emergency landing in Gotham City by Rorschach and Veidt, who believe they are too dangerous to be free. He urges them to be patient until they find Dr. Manhattan, after which they will let the couple come with them once more. While Ozymandias and Rorschach investigate where they've arrived, the criminals escape and depart. They subsequently come upon the Joker's henchmen and, following a scuffle, demand to meet the criminal in person. They fight more of the Joker's goons and see protesters destroying the bat signal. Erica later gave birth to her baby months after this event, while Marco is still imprisoned in Sing Sing. She was shouting that she wanted Marco to be there so that they could jointly see their kid. The baby is taken away before Erica can look at it, even once, and she subsequently relocated to Sing Sing along with her husband. Years before the incidents of Watchmen, Marcos worked at his family's company Maze Glass, which was just across the street from Erica Manson's dad's puppet shop. Marco was noticeably unhappy while his parents argued as he gazed out the window. He was about to walk away when he noticed Erica controlling a puppet and waving at him. Marco then entered the store, stunned, and Erica escorted him around. Erica and Marco became good friends. However, Marco's stepfather considered her to be a harmful influence. Erica was afterward beaten up by 3 youngsters who were making fun of her and also calling her father a pedophile. Marco smashed many glass bottles at the 2 boys' heads before they could torture her any further, while Erica rushed after the young girl who had taken her puppet. Officers McDonald and White would eventually assassinate Marco's mother after she declined to pay them a bribe and fund their wicked ways. They shoved her into the fire escape while pretending it was a mistake. Erica's father planned to turn Marco into a puppet, but before Marco could make a decision, the cops arrived and Marco fled in panic. When Erica discovered what the police were planning to do, she attempted to persuade Marco to assist her in supporting her father. He was hesitant. Erica then walks inside her father's shop and discovers his lifeless body hanging on a rope. The cops arrive, demanding for their payments to be made as she is clutching her father's body, but are taken aback by what they witness. Erica becomes enraged and takes a pair of scissors, stabbing one of the police officers with them. Before the second cop can kill her, Marco charges towards him and chews his hand, forcing him to drop his gun. Erica leaps on top of him and suffocates him to death using a wire before he can cause any more harm. Marco Mayers was actually a mime performer sometime before 1985. When he and his wife were crushed by Rorschach, their careers as costumed villains came to an end. Mime was also serving a jail sentence in Sing Sing by 1992. Exploring the twisted origins of Mime and Marionette. Rorschach unlocks Door 31 in the very first issue of Doomsday Clock and sees Erica Manson, the marionette, within. She's surprised to find out that Rorschach is still alive, so he demonstrates to her that he is actually another Rorschach by removing one of his gloves and revealing his black skin. Nonetheless, he refuses to be labeled as an imposter, repeatedly saying, "I am Rorschach." Rorschach gets down to business, handing Manson her compensation for a task he wants her to complete. The envelope includes a photograph of her kid, and she'll be informed where he is after she's located God, also known as Dr. Manhattan, and thereby save the world. Erica becomes enraged but eventually agrees on one condition. Her evil husband, Marcos Mays, also well known as the Mime, must accompany her. In some other room, a few convicts plot to sexually attack a guard, but Mays is the only one who refuses to participate, simply watching the spectacle with disgust and saying nothing. A fellow convict grabs Mays and mercilessly punches him. Rorschach and Erica appear unexpectedly as she invites him to join them on their quest. Erica claims to be aware that he is in the midst of a performance as Mays is playing the underdog and subsequently the champion, saying "Baba Boom" and turning unexpectedly, but he must hurry. The mime murders all of his assaulters and joins Erica and Rorschach right away, a giant smile on his face and deranged eyes. With fewer than 3 hours left to go, Rorschach pushes the pair to leave, but there is another problem. Mays can't just leave sans his special weaponry, which seems to be too invisible, or perhaps fictitious, rifle. While New York City is under forced evacuation, Rorschach and the wicked couple descend via the sewers to meet with the evil Rorschach's unknown partner. Rorschach can't recall if they should turn right or left at crossroads. The mime aims his weapons at him, and Erica informs him what will go down next. He'll bring them to his accomplice and give the whereabouts of their child, or they'll have their tongues torn out of their throats, as the mime has done to his own self, as the reason doesn't speak. Rorschach does not respond to the danger, just concluding that the correct way to go is right. The group enters a massive steel door that leads inside Night Owl's lair. Despite Erica's suspicions that his companion is Night Owl, Ozymandias emerges from the shadows, clutching a small Bubastis. Erica instantly threatens to murder him, does not tell her the whereabouts of her kid, noting that the price on his head must now be worth millions. Ozymandias responds calmly, saying he'll give her not $1 but $200 million if she does her job and tell her all she wants to know, as long as she stops threatening him. Ozymandias provides Marionette and Mime with their original clothes, complete with Marionette's favorite scent, at Night Owl's lair. Ozymandias then reveals that Marionette symbolizes a time in Manhattan's history and that she hopes to persuade him that humankind is worth rescuing and that he should return and save Earth. Both Rorschach and Ozymandias recognize that Russia and the United States have launched nuclear missiles and that they're now very short on time. All four of them board the Owl ship, with Ozymandias stating that they'll follow Manhattan's line of leaking electrons in order to find him. Just before the first bomb detonates in New York, Ozymandias latches onto Manhattan and transports all of them there. The Owl ship crash lands in an abandoned theme park after passing through the famous bat signal in Gotham. To Marionette's chagrin, Ozymandias wakes Rorschach up, and the two decide to examine the site while tying Mime and Marionette securely to the ship until they're both required. When Marionette laments about the situation, Mime recalls that he brought his invisible lockpick with him, smiling. Mime and Marionette release themselves from their shackles at the abandoned theme park in which the Owl ship crashed, and they're now free to explore this intriguing new world. Mime and Marionette walk into a pub full of Joker's thugs. The thugs become enraged when the girl, Marionette, inquires who the Joker is, and one of the thugs threatens to cut a big smile on her skin with a knife. Mime instantly places his imaginary gun on the man's head, making fun of him until he suddenly pulls the trigger, blasting the thug's head off. Mime and Marionette effortlessly defeat all of their opponents and ultimately decide to confront the infamous Joker. Mime and Marionette proceed to assassinate those associated with the Joker after learning that he will be present in a conference on top of the headquarters of the GCPD later that day. Meanwhile, the comedian stumbles onto the pub where the couple massacred the Joker's men and terrifies two police officers as he searches for the murderers. The Joker greets Mime and Marionette as they arrive atop the GCPD roof, but is abruptly stopped by one of his minions, presenting him with Batman's broken body. After the ambush on the GCPD headquarters, the Joker and his minions escort Marionette and Mime inside the Gotham City sewers. Marionette recalls her history and her first meeting with Mime as they walk. Erica Manson grew up with her dad, who had migrated to America to run a doll-making shop. Across the street was Maith Glass, a Hispanic-owned shop. Marcos Mays, the son, was silent and verbally harassed by his stepfather every day. One day, Marcos walks into the Manson store and is escorted around by Erica. Meanwhile, in the sewers, when Joker tries to coax Mime and Marionette into becoming a part of his ranks, they reject his offer and attack his troops, resulting in the Joker mistakenly killing his own. Joker chuckles, and the group moves on to the meeting. Back inside Marionette's memories, Erica was walking with her marionette doll when she was attacked by a bunch of bullies. Erica's father was insulted by the bullies, who accused him of being a child predator and stole Erica's doll. Erica fought the ringleader, but the bullies' goons pulled her down and were about to chop her hair. Marcos then halted the bullies and struck them using glass bottles. Erica took on the leader and eagerly requested additional bottles from Marcos. Erica's dad offered to build Marcos a doll of his choice after showing him around his business. Two police officers, however, approached the store and expressed their concern for Marcos' mum. Erica's father offers the authorities a puppet shaped like a leprechaun for the officer's daughter as Marcos runs out of the store. A scuffle breaks out at the conference that the Joker brings them to, so Mime distracts a villain named Blake, enabling both him and Marionette to flee as another villain named the Comedian shoots up the place. Meanwhile, we continue to witness glimpses of Erica's past. Later that day, the cops return, curious which puppet Erica's dad used this time. When he tries to resist the cops, they assault him, claiming that their boss got him to this nation, and so he owns him. These dishonest officers had been taking in immigrants and permitting them to create businesses in order to employ them to distribute narcotics. The cops are suggested to have murdered Marcus's mother and threatened to murder Erica if her father doesn't comply. He gives in, exposing the drug shipment to be contained within a night owl puppet. Erica returns to the store after the incident only to discover that her dad has killed himself, believing that she would be safer without him. Erica stabs one of the police officers in the throat using a pair of scissors. They arrive on the scene. The other attempts to shoot her. However, Marcos stops him, enabling Erica to choke him with a wire. The two flee to the streets, ultimately adopting the personas of the Mime and Marionette. Erica gave birth to their son after their experience with Dr. Manhattan, while Marcos remains imprisoned. The child was abducted and would never be seen again. The comedian apprehends Mime and Marionette as they set out to find their kid. Blake feels that he only requires one of them to survive in order to discover Ozymandias. However, he's electrocuted by the evil Joker, who joins the two of them in their mission to find Manhattan. Later on in the series, Marionette and Mime prepare for the birth of their second child. Jonathan Kent recounts not murdering Marionette and Mime throughout the past because their unborn kid would bring immense delight to his former sweetheart, Laurie Jupiter. He suddenly realizes that he is actually the one who has to take the young child away from them. As Manhattan goes on to raise the child, he understands that he'll never be the superhero that his planet requires because he lacks what Superman has. Fate does not exist without a guiding force. John bestows the remainder of his abilities on the Earth as well as the kid. The kid is dropped off at the Hollis household, where he presents himself to their young girl as an acquaintance of her parents. She introduces herself as Sally, who welcomes him inside for pancakes, and the kid introduces himself as Clark. What makes them such twisted villains? Erica Manson, also known as Marionette, is very powerful and has a host of special abilities that she uses to cause immense pain to her adversaries. She's talented in acrobatics, characterizing her ability to achieve feats of balance, agility, and coordination. Acrobatic applications include performing arts such as ballet and circus. She is very skilled at intimidation, persuasion, and she may compel respect or dominate via terror. Her capacity to instill enormous dread is greatly valued. She is also highly proficient at stealing or thievery. Her methods of theft may include robbery, embezzlement, fraud, looting, kidnapping, or shoplifting. This category also includes criminal masterminds who plan bank robberies. She is also a skilled martial artist, adept in a wide range of martial arts skills and combat styles. She is also a great seducer, enticing everybody she desires to engage in certain types of behavior, which could be sexual nature. Her sensuality also includes charisma application, as she employs her feminine wit and charm to confuse male opponents and get them to drop their guard. This is not to say she'll participate in sexual actions on the spur of the moment, but for assignments that require her to work secretly, she's not beyond utilizing the art of seduction to accomplish her aims. She's also skilled in advanced techniques of hand-to-hand combat and gymnastics, which is a phrase used to define her ability to undertake exercises that involve a significant level of physical strength, agility, and control. It varies from acrobatics in the sense that it's more of a coordinated sport than a freewheeling theatrical act. Her preferred weapon is a slicing string, which she employs to seriously harm her opponents. Mime is also an expert in various forms of combat. He's unique in the sense that he uses acting as an attacking skill, using it to get things done his way and also using it to defeat his opponents. Just like his wife, he's also an expert at thievery and robbing. He also has extensive knowledge and proficiency in the usage of numerous weapons. This comprises automatic pistols, semi-automatic rifles, handguns, shotguns, carbines, railguns, and exotic off-world armaments, and he also excels in hand-to-hand combat. He is also a specialist in marksmanship, which is his ability to hurl objects or weapons like knives, boomerangs, or shuriken. His weapons are very unique, as they are invisible, and he uses an invisible handgun and knife to defeat his opponents. Mime might not be able to talk, but his presence speaks volumes. It's not simple to produce a mute figure as captivating and intimidating as Frank and John's do. Marionette, on the other hand, is all talk, yet she also has a vicious sting to accompany her bark. Her frivolity swiftly turns to malice, and she's made all the more noticeable by it. As the boundary between evil and good begins to blur, we're taught that things are no longer black and white, and this is very much the scenario with both Mime and Marionette. We've already seen that these characters are aggressive and vicious, but they also have a surprising amount of complexity. They're both broken, but they're loyal to each other, and they're both driven by the desire to be together with their kid. All of these characteristics help to humanize the two intriguing characters who could have easily been two-dimensional if their stories were written by less inventive hands. It only takes 2 issues to show that Mime and Marionette possibly are 2 of DC Comics' most fantastic additions in recent times. They've only become 2 characters we would like to see a lot more of in a field that isn't often open to fresh characters. They may be clothed in white and black, but there is nothing black and white about them. Grey is now the new norm in the DC universe, as it was in the universe of Watchmen, and now it appears that the 2 characters are about to be unleashed on Gotham City, which means that all kinds of lunacy will undoubtedly ensue. So, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.